What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by Poddex, fueled by Goat Fuel. Once again, joining me on the show, Blaine Spencer of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast. What's up, my man? How you doing?
Hey man, it's bright and early. I've got my coffee, West Coast time. Let's just say we're thriving this morning, trying to get ourselves going. Appreciate you having me back on. I'm a returning guest within a couple days. So that means I'm obviously doing something right with my takes to have Marcus bring me back that quickly. So we're good.
And yeah, shout out to you for doing this at 7 o'clock in the morning over there in Idaho, in Potato Land. I appreciate that, man. I do. I really appreciate it.
Don't worry, man. I'm going to have my hash browns right after this because that's all they pretty much have out here for breakfast and or food. So you just try to figure out what kind of potatoes you're going to make that said day. So
that sounds right. Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Grizzlies advance in 6 in the first round. John Morant played. I haven't said this out loud to anybody, so some people are going to comment and say that I'm crazy, and I don't care because if you look at the stats, it's true. John Morant was not that great in this series. He was not the best player on the Grizzlies this series. You could make an argument he wasn't even the second best player on the Grizzlies in this series, but they were able to get the job done. We saw two young talents, two up-and-coming talents under 25 in the NBA duke it out, Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards, over the next 5 years, or in 5 years, however you want to phrase it. Who would you rather have, Ja Morant or Anthony Edwards?
Honestly, I don't really think this is a difficult question. And if you say Anthony Edwards, then I obviously didn't interpret the question correctly because I think it's Ja Morant. And it's not even close at this moment, especially within these next 5 years. Ja Morant is an absolute explosive talent. He is, I know we're going to be talking about this in the next topic about top 5 point guards. He's ascending there. I don't have him there at the moment, but he is right on the outside looking in. Anthony Edwards, absolute gifted scorer. I think he just takes too many risks. And there's still that question mark that is he really committed to playing basketball? That was one of the huge issues that was coming when he was coming out of college. Was he fully invested into it? And Ja Morant bleeds and dies basketball. He loves that small market vibe coming from a small market school at Murray State. You could just see that he has dedicated himself to the city of Memphis. And Memphis is going to be clearly a force to reckon with in the Western Conference. I don't think it's going to be this year, but in the next coming years as a championship contender. And I completely agree with you. I don't even think I think he was the third best player on Memphis. I think Brandon Clark was the best player in this series, and it wasn't really close. I would go with Brandon Clark. He was the most important player on the floor for Memphis. And then you would go Desmond Bane second. Those two guys were clearly the two best players on the Memphis Grizzlies. And I know we'll talk about Minnesota a little bit later, but I would go with Ja Morant just because of the commitment he played. And he can beat you in so many ways. He can beat you with his passing, his scoring. Yep. He has to work on his jump shot, which has been the real issue with him, and especially in this past series. But Ja Morant, 5 years down the road, I don't think it's really close.
I'm inclined to say Ja Morant as well. I think as it stands right now, I think that there's a legitimate argument that can be made that you could take Anthony Edwards 5 years from now over Ja. Off of the simple fact, like commitment issues aside, the one edge that Anthony Edwards has, because I don't like offensively, they're both good for about 25 a night. Like that's there. If you like they can both give you. I think Anthony Edwards averaged like 4 assists in this game, and Ja Morant averaged like 10. Right,
so it's effortless, right? It's effortless 25.
But it's not that, and so Ja's a better natural facilitator, right? They both average about 1.3 steals per game, right? They shoot about the same as far as efficiency is concerned. The one edge I give to Anthony Edwards, I think that is important though, is I think Anthony Edwards is a better defender than Ja Morant, right? And it's not that Ja Morant can't defend, because he can defend. Like when he's locked in, he can defend and he can hang with the best of them. But consistently, as far as just like random Tuesday in April, like type of defense type of thing. Like Anthony Edwards, I think is a better natural defender than John Morant. That's the slight edge. But no, like John Morant, I think it's easier to build around John Morant. I think John Morant has proven that he can be the number one. Well, he hasn't proven it yet. I think he's on his way to proving that he can potentially be the number one option on a championship winning basketball team. And when you have a small guard like John Morant, who is explosive or that can play above the rim, that is a natural facilitator, that can give you 25, maybe even 30 a night. So like if he so chooses, and can also explode for more than that, it's much easier to build around him. And Memphis has clearly figured that out. You have your wing guys in Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks, right? You have those two guys who are also good defensively as well. You have Jaren Jackson, who, although he was extremely underwhelming this series, is a reliable guy down low. You have a Steven Adams, who obviously you can upgrade at the center position, but Steven Adams is by no stretch of the imagination a bad center, right? He's a lock for, you can say 12 and 12 any given night, and you can up that to 15 and 15 if it's a big time situation. Anthony Edwards, however, you have to have a specific type of. You can still build around Anthony Edwards, but because he's bigger, because he can do a little bit more, it gets a little bit tougher to find the exact pieces to build around a guy like Anthony Edwards who can do a little bit of everything, right? It's almost like Luka, for example, right? It is extremely easy to build around Luka because he's a big dude, but he can pass, he can shoot, he can drive. He doesn't really play above the rim, right? But you can get yourself like a solid big down there and some shooters around him. That's a championship team down there in Dallas, right? It's very easy to build around Luka. It's very easy to build around a guy like Trae Young. Very easy to build around guys like Jason Tatum and some of these other young guys in the league. Anthony Edwards, he does a little bit of everything. I feel like if you put too much of one thing around Anthony Edwards, you could be hurting his game a little bit because he can do a little bit of everything. But no, I mean, John Morant's the better player now. I think John Morant will be the better player in 5 years. He'll be the better player in 10 years. Both of these guys, I think, have top 5, top 10 potential in the NBA.
Absolutely.
100%, especially once, all these older guys go. But right now and 5 years from now, I would take John Morant. The one thing that would make me maybe change my mind is if Anthony Edwards continues to improve defensively, because
he took a lot of risks in that last series, though.
He does take a lot of risks, but as overpowered offensively as the game is, that's what makes good defenders that much more valuable, because you have guys like Steph, you have guys like KD and guys like Kyrie and Jason Tatum and all these guys that can just pour in 30 a night. Somebody's got to get paid to stop these guys or at least slow these guys down. If Anthony Edwards continues to develop defensively, he's going to be one of those guys that makes a lot of his money because of not just what he can do offensively, because of what he can do defensively. And he can become, I think, a premier 2A player in this league should he continue to improve defensively.
Absolutely. And I think it's more that we're just picking hairs, right? And we know these two are going to be absolute superstars in this league if just based off the trajectory that they are on. But I want to pose this question to you. I know it's not one of the topics that we were going to talk about, but was this more good Memphis or bad Minnesota in this series? Because the basketball was very sloppy at times. You know what I mean?
If we're being completely honest, this was bad both teams, and it's not that the teams were bad. It's more so that like both these teams are really young. Neither of these teams have been in this situation often, right? This is Anthony Edwards' first playoff series. I don't think there's a single player on the Grizzlies outside of Steven Adams that's been in a playoff series, if not more than one.
Yeah, other than last year's first round exit. Yeah,
right. So you're looking at who else? Like, Pat Bev, obviously on the Timberwolves, he's been in the playoffs before, but like these are both really young teams. D'Angelo Russell, obviously, he had that amazing run with Brooklyn before he got traded out of there. Like he had that was some playoff experience. So like there's not a lot of playoff experience for either of these teams. And I guess this kind of we can just segue. We can skip the second one and just go straight to the third topic and double back.
Okay.
Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns did a lot of talking, and this is sports, right? And athletes tend to buy a lot of their own stock, right? That's usually how it works. You have to bet on yourself in order to make it far, because if no one else is going to bet on you, you have to bet on you and be that. So there's no knock on Karl-Anthony Towns for betting on himself. The knock comes with when you bet on yourself and then you foul out of your playing game with 7 minutes to go. You open up another playoff game and you start the game 0-7. You come back home in a pivotal game 3 and you only take 4 shots. You have 8 points. But you do a lot of talking. So has Karl-Anthony Towns bought too much of his own stock.
Yeah, I think he has. I don't think it's really much of a question either in that regard because of all the talking. And I think the way the NBA is now, like how you said it, like if you better be buying your own stock, otherwise you're never going to be able to be effective in the NBA, right?
Yep.
But you have seen how he is so sometimes he's exposed now with a smaller defender that gets up in his chest because he wants to play on the perimeter and not be a true prototypical big man. And I think that's what he needs to work on this offseason. He needs to bulk up and be more of a physical presence on the interior, especially now with all these rumors that Minnesota's trying to get rid of Russell. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but they're trying to trade
Russell. Can I just say,
D'Lo.
D'Lo has been so I think he's gotten so much of the short end of the stick.
Yes.
First of all, props to D'Lo for playing himself out of Brooklyn. The talent was there. There was no denying his talent. That was part of the issue. But to be traded from Golden State, I thought personally for Andrew Wiggins was not the best decision. Now, Andrew Wiggins was an all-star this year. You're a Warriors fan. You have your own takes on it. I just really
I think they really tried to undervalue D'Lo in that trade. You know what I mean?
Look, this is the thing. And what we're seeing from Jordan Poole this season, I thought is what we would have saw from
D'Lo this
D'Angelo
season.
Russell if he was still there. Because I mean, we've seen the best of D'Angelo Russell, and I think playing alongside Steph and Clay would have been beautiful.
I think the issue with Russell just being because I'm a Warriors guy, and he didn't hit because Warriors like to play fast moving up tempo basketball, right? The ball wants to be quick, it wants to be fast, and D'Lo kind of plays at his own pace, right? A little bit in slow motion at times. I think that was honestly part of the reason that he got moved was because of that. He was not fully engaged in that ball movement type of offense. So I think that was part of the reason. And we really needed defending, especially with Clay being out. And that's the reason Wiggins came in. But I think we really undervalued him in that trade.
So it's not so much the move. I think you could have gotten more for D'Angelo Russell.
That's what I mean.
Given the season he was coming off of in 2019, to turn that into Andrew Wiggins. Like I know D'Lo probably wanted to go to Minnesota, and he's one of the only people on the planet that wants to play in Minnesota that wasn't already there. And that's fine. No knock on D'Angelo Russell for that. But I feel like if you're the Warriors, given what we saw D'Lo do in Brooklyn before the sign and trade occurred where he ends up going to Golden State with the whole Kevin Durant thing, like you could have got more. And I know they ended up getting Andrew Wiggins and a pick that I think turned into Moody or Kuminga, whichever one they drafted with that pick they got from Minnesota. And I think it was
Kuminga. No,
and that's cool.
Yeah,
but I feel like you could have gotten more. I feel like you could have gotten a lot more for a guy like D'Angelo Russell, who proved that he could be the best player on a team that's kind of like trying to figure it out, like a young team like that. And also Andrew Wiggins, all-star this year.
And he's been such a mixed bag after the break, though. I know we're talking. I know we have drifted to Warriors.
We have drifted a little bit, but it's fine. It's fine. So this is so Karl-Anthony Towns. First of all, my beef with Karl-Anthony Towns started when he called himself the greatest shooting big man of all time. Because how dare you disrespect the great Dirk Nowitzki that way? We're talking about the German Jesus, a guy who delivered a championship to the Dallas Mavericks organization in 2011, a guy who made the shooting big man pop. Like you wouldn't be who you are.
He's the evolution of the pick and pop big.
If you now you call yourself the greatest shooting big man of all time, but like the numbers don't really support that you're the greatest shooting big man of all time. Now, granted, this season he did average 25 on 53% shooting, and that's cool. But Karl-Anthony Towns consistently shrinks in big moments. Like we were talking before we went on the show. The Timberwolves should have won this series Like
Easily, it should have been over in
The
5.
Timberwolves should have won this series. They had multiple double-digit leads, not just throughout the course of this series, but throughout the course of these games. Like blowing 20-plus point leads and then losing by 20 plus points. In what I believe was game 2 is just insane. To come back home in game 3 after you stolen the game on the road in game 1. Okay, so you have a demoralizing game 2. To come back home in game 3, this is a major big. It's 1-1. It's a 1. So this is a pivotal game 3 here, and Karl-Anthony Towns nowhere to be found. And then what is?
And you were up so big in game 3 too. Big.
And then you come back and you get the 1-point win in Minnesota, and then he does the whole deep voice thing, and then we go back to Memphis. And then Memphis wins at home, and then they
another double-digit lead blown in game 5. Then in game 6, another double-digit lead blown.
This is such a young team, and so I don't want to like bring the hammer down on the team, because I'm not bringing the hammer down on the team. I'm bringing the hammer down on the one player, because I feel like what has to happen is, I said going into the series that this is Anthony Edwards' team. Like, I know he's young, but Anthony Edwards is the best player on this team, and I don't even think it's that close. Like, okay, Cat can go off for 30, and they might win. But if Anthony Edwards is going off for 30, you're probably gonna win, because he's the much better player. He's much more consistent. I think he's much more reliable than a Karl-Anthony Towns. But Karl-Anthony Towns has made himself, or tried to keep himself at that face of the franchise status. He tried to keep himself as the guy on the team. That's fine. I have no beef with that. But if you're gonna walk the walk, you have to talk the talk. And Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm sorry, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk.
Yeah, you flipped it real quick.
Yeah, I flipped it real quick. And Karl-Anthony Towns did not walk the walk in this series. The Timberwolves should be in the second round. Like, and there's not any dispute that if the best player on the other team isn't the best player on a game-by-game basis through the series, you shouldn't be sitting at home. Like, Ja Morant was not the best player in this series. Desmond Bane was. And then it was Brandon Clark. And quite frankly, you can make an argument that Dillon Brooks had a better series as far as consistency is concerned than Ja Morant. You could make that argument if you look at the statistic and you look at how the game was looking. Now, again, Ja's young. It's his first playoff series. So
he has a game winner in his bag.
And he has a game winner in his bag. So it's hard to just – and I'm not saying that Ja was playing terrible. But Ja was by no stretch of the imagination playing – at the level that we expect.
Pat Bev was in his head. You could see it.
You could legitimately make that argument. And Pat Bev, as much as I think he's annoying, he's a professional pest. So if I think he's annoying, then he's doing his job. But Karl-Anthony Towns has bought too much of his own stock. He needs to sell some of it. He needs to shut up. He needs to sit down somewhere. He needs to become more consistent. He needs to show up in big moments. Like, yes. Young guy, young team. This was crazy. This is the perfect matchup, I think, because it's two young teams. So if there's any opportunity for the Timberwolves to have won a playoff series against any other team in the Western Conference, it was this one. And it's not like Memphis had completely just overmatched them and they were able to steal too. No, on a game-by-game basis, the Timberwolves were playing better basketball. Like, the Timberwolves were playing better defensively. They looked like the better coached team. Not that they are, but they looked like it. They were executing more. You jump out to 2 20-point leads in one game, you blow both of them, and then you end up losing by 20. The Timberwolves absolutely 100% lost this series more than Memphis won it.
Yes.
100%. And if Memphis looks like this in the second round against the Warriors, you can forget about it.
Absolutely.
Forget about it, because they have young talent, but the Warriors they still got Steph.
They aren't going to make those mistakes.
They're not going to make the silly
mistakes. And they made two. And I mean, we're recording this after game 1 of the second round, but you even just watching the game on Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Warriors made so many unaccustomed mistakes down the stretch.
Yeah.
And they still won without Draymond Green, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was the game Memphis had to win. Like, you have to win game 1 after that.
Yeah, that's the one you win. Clay misses those two free throws down. He comes back and hits the 3. That was Memphis's game to win.
Yeah,
I don't know because that's a sloppy Warriors team. I don't know if Memphis. I don't want to say it's a sweep because I'm going to trust that Ja can get 1 at home, whether it's game 3 or game 4. So I'm not going to call it a sweep, but game 1,
game 2, they only have one more.
Yeah, I'm saying game 2. Yeah, that's right, because they're the high seed. So maybe they win game 2, but like, that's a game you got to win in game 1. 100%. Real quickly though, just
let's
before
jump
we
back.
go back into that one, I do want to talk about this Minnesota team, right? Because you've got Anthony Edwards. They may or may not be
Absolutely.
moving on from D'Lo. You have Karl-Anthony Towns. Where do you go from here, right? This season is still a win. This is not a
Absolutely
overall because they weren't supposed to be here. So this is still a win. Like I know I've been hard on Karl-Anthony Towns and the Timberwolves as far as not making it to the next second round because they should have. But this season is still a win given that they did make it to the playoffs when they were not good at all that much last season.
They were the most improved team technically in basketball.
They were.
Make that argument.
Increase in wins. They were definitely the most improved. Like Anthony Edwards improved. D'Lo took a step up as well. Karl-Anthony Towns, he did improve, although he's not at all the stratosphere that he is putting himself in. He did take that step forward. So where does Minnesota go from here as far as improvement, as far as coaching, as far as you look ahead to the draft, free agency, things like that? What does Minnesota do next to maybe get themselves back in this position next season?
Yeah, so based off of how the roster is constructed right now, right? Their team is pretty set up for the future. They're extremely young. You saw Jaden McDaniels really explode, especially in that second half of this series, who I think really ascended, and you really saw the potential that really he had coming out of Washington as a big, long wing defender, 3-and-D guy. And I think the one thing that they really need, and now with all these rumors that D'Lo is going to be out, I think it's going to be really unique to see what you're going to bring in, because you're going to have to do a trade. No one's going to sign with Minnesota, right? They need a veteran presence, right? That can take over that locker room, because that was the issue in this series, right? We both claimed that Minnesota should have won this series easily. I think it should have. Gentleman's sweep should have been done in 5 for the Timberwolves. And so what I want to see is what veteran leadership can you bring in, right? Because in those moments, they had nobody that could stop the bleeding, right? Or gather the troops. Because as soon as you could see it, especially in game 5 and 6, as soon as Memphis started to claw back in that fourth quarter, you knew the game was over. You knew it. You could sense it. As soon as they got within 3 or 4 points with like 4 minutes to go, oh, Memphis has got this. This game's over. Minnesota's going to fold because it's all they did in this series. I want to see them bring in a veteran presence, maybe a traditional. I'm trying to think of like who would be a good fit right now off the top of my head.
I think Ricky Rubio is probably going to be the most interesting.
I think he should come back
because
he doesn't. He's really worked on his shooting right while he's been in Cleveland. He's gotten a better 3-point shot. He's not going to be in that Cleveland lineup now with Sexton coming back.
Yeah.
So he's going to be on the outside looking in. I think he should come back to Minnesota. I think that'd be a perfect fit because they need a true facilitator, right?
I mean, Ricky Rubio, I think, is going to be hotly pursued this season for all those things. I'm sure Minnesota
or Rondo. If Rondo was willing to go to Minnesota, I think that would be a great fit because he would not put anything go past them. He would tell them how it is. He's a championship winner, so he knows how to win playoff games. I think Rondo would be an interesting piece too.
Rubio, I think it'd be interesting because I'm sure Minnesota's going to try to go after him. I would hope that maybe the Lakers look at him because that would be a much better fit than the Russell Westbrook fit because you've got a natural facilitator that doesn't mind passing the ball. You can have him come off the bench with the second unit. You can do that with Ricky Rubio. That'd be fine. There's some other like you can look at Brooklyn maybe looking at a guy like Ricky Rubio. I know they're still in the playoffs right now, but even a team like maybe Boston could like. There are a lot of teams I think that could 100% benefit from the services of Ricky Rubio. And I know with Boston it's a little bit different because they have the facilitator Marcus Smart Marcus Smart, he's a solid facilitator. There's no shot at Marcus Smart, but I think Ricky Rubio would definitely complete that. Marcus Smart can go back to playing kind of off the ball and still do all those things.
And Pritchard's a liability on that team.
So there are a lot of different places. I think whoever can bring in Rubio definitely gets an A as far as that signing. I don't think that's not a bad signing at all. I think Minnesota would definitely benefit from it, or Rondo too, because again, like you said, he's a 2-time champion.
You really need someone in Minnesota that can hold them accountable, right? You need someone that can he can bring the locker room as a whole. He doesn't have to be like a consistent like scorer, facilitator. They just need that veteran leadership, because Pat Bev was not there, and that's what I thought was going to happen, especially in like Game 5. As soon as they started to go down, I thought Pat Bev was going to be like, "Are we really going to fold right now like we've been folding all series?" I felt like that was going to be him. I thought he was going to rise to the occasion and be like, "Yo, we cannot let this happen again."
If you look at the series, I mean, Minnesota wins Game 1 by 13, right? Memphis, after,
other than Game 2, where they held the 20-point lead and then blew it, right, and lost by 20. But you could tell in that Game 2, Minnesota threw in the towel as soon as Memphis made that run in the second quarter.
I bet.
But honestly, you could make the argument 3 out of the 4 quarters, other than Game 2, in every game, Minnesota was the better team on the floor. For 3 out of the 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And then in the fourth quarter, Memphis made their run and Minnesota just
collapsed. You look at it in the fourth. You look at it in Game 4. This series could have been over in Game 5, because in Game 4, Minnesota barely hang on to a lead. They end up winning that game by 1, right? Memphis wins that game, follows up with a 2-point win the next game, and then obviously they win by 8 in Game 6. Like, Minnesota was not the better team heading into this series, but they played better basketball through 75% of the game. Absolutely. And what Minnesota showed you really is that this is why you play 48 minutes of basketball. You don't play 36 minutes.
And that's what they need to preach in the offseason.
You don't play 40 minutes of basketball. There's a reason why there's a reason why the game is at least 48 minutes long, because you have to play all 48 minutes. And if you don't, you can be sent home, especially in the playoffs, because 1 minute off, we talk all the time, possession slow down, defense is more important. Like, each individual possession becomes more and more important over the course of a playoff game. Like, you think a turnover in the first quarter means nothing until you look at the score at the end of the game and you lose by 1, and that 1 turnover would have been the difference. Like, those things matter a lot more in the postseason, and that is why it is so critical, even for young teams, to stay focused. Like, we get it. You're young. Your first time here. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of nerves, right? But you have to fake it till you make it, at least.
And they were celebrating like they had already won the game in most of those games too, right? You could see it like when Memphis would call like that timeout, they're up double digits. They were already acting like they had won the game. Like, and I think that's like they also have a coach who's younger in experience, right? Yeah. He's a great coach, by the way. I think he is one of the ascending coaches in basketball right now. But he needs to really look back in this series and be like, we need to, like, as you said, finish games.
Yeah. Like, and again, it's a young team, so it's hard to really bring the hammer down. And it's not, I don't want it to seem like this is just a fact. Like, if you look at those games, Minnesota's up in the fourth quarter heading into all those games, if I'm not mistaken, into all of those
game two, yeah.
Other than game 2, they're up in the fourth quarter. You got to finish. Like, and here's the thing: if we're gonna hold and I know that that's Katie and Kyrie, but if we're gonna talk about closing games as far as Brooklyn's concerned, yeah, this is a younger team, but we got to still hold that. This is playoff basketball. Closing games is closing games. No one expects Minnesota to win a championship. Obviously, that's not a championship team. But when you're in the playoffs, the goal is to win a championship. No matter if it's a long shot or not, the goal is to win a championship. No one had the Minnesota Timberwolves winning a championship on their 2022 playoff bingo cards. Of course not. But the point is, you still play playoff basketball to win a championship. And they didn't, at the very least, to win a series, to win a game. And it just too many times they failed to close games. And like I said, in game 4, they almost had another one slip. And this would have been a 5-game series instead of a 6-game series if they didn't hold on by a fingernail in game 4. Now, we did talk about it earlier, so I do want to talk about it very quickly before we go. Okay. Because as Blaine mentioned earlier, we are recording this on Tuesday. We've already seen game 1 of the Western Conference semis with Memphis and Golden State. By the time you see this, I believe we would have seen game 2 as well.
Yeah, game 2's tonight.
So by the time you guys see this, we will have also seen game 2. So it'll be a 2-0 Golden State lead, which brings a smile to Blaine's face, or it'll be a 1-1 Golden State, or it'll be a 1-1 tie heading into game 3 going into Golden State. Can Memphis, and I want your complete unbiased opinion because I know you're a Warriors fan, but we're looking for the unbiased.
Okay. Yeah, I can give you unbiased.
can Memphis win game 2? And if they can, what do they have to do to make sure they can go into Golden State with this series tied? Because they've been here before. Because remember, like we talked about last series, they lost game 1, they bounced back, They win game 2. But they won game 2 after coming back down 20 twice. Golden State's not going to give up 2 20-point leads. So that can't be the thinking. But we've seen Memphis come out of the 1-0 hole before, tie at 1-1 going into the road. What does Memphis have to do to do that again here in this series tonight? Or yesterday?
All right, so completely unbiased.
Completely unbiased. Non-Warriors opinion. Completely
unbiased. Non-Warriors opinion. So for Memphis to actually win this game, right? I think this is actually a must-win, right? You're going back to Golden State. You know, even if you get a split in Golden State, which is possible.
It is.
Because it's completely different now playing at the Chase Center than it is at Oracle. Completely different surrounding. The arena is not, as a fan, it's not completely different dynamic now. And it's not as loud with how much larger the stadium is. But you could feel like how generated Oracle was with how compact it was in there. It was something completely to behold. But for them to win tonight, right, they need to be efficient. Dillon Brooks was absolutely atrocious in game 1. Atrocious. And that's being kind. Atrocious is being kind.
Yeah.
So Dillon Brooks has to be a difference maker on the offensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the real critical component now is how are you going to adjust now with Draymond now going to be in the lineup? Because I think Golden State made an adjustment in game 1. They started Jordan Poole in the second half. Why? Because Gary Payton is not a scorer on that court. So Ja went over to guard him to kind of limit possessions. And in the second half, they forced Ja Morant to be a defender. And Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, and Clay exposed that a little bit with how they had to, with what people call, Stephen A. Smith calls Lethal Weapon 3, which I hate the nickname, honestly. But it doesn't make any sense.
Stephen A. Smith.
So skip that part. But I think they need to be efficient.
Yeah.
And Jaren Jackson played probably the best game of his career, and they still lost this game, right? Like he probably had arguably the most impact on the court, and they still lost.
It's the best game he's played this playoffs, that's for sure.
Yeah. So they got to be efficient. Ja Morant has to be. He settled too much in game 1 from the outside because they dared him to show off that he can make a jump shot, and he made his first 2 out of his first 3, right, to start the game. I think he probably made maybe 2 more the rest of the game on 8 more attempts.
Yeah.
You need to, even though they are daring you to shoot the basketball, you need to be your style of brand. You need to drive into the paint, force the second defender, and find the open man. And then you just efficiency is going to be paramount. The Warriors are going to score. Mm-hmm. And I think that was also the issue in game 1. Because Warriors were up double digits in that fourth quarter when Memphis made that run, right? And you could see that Memphis was they're that team that's never going to fold because of how young they are. And they did that in all of that last series against Minnesota, and they pride themselves on that. Yep. But they now have realized the Warriors have that championship mentality, and they aren't going to fold down the stretch. Even though you make that run, that pedigree is going to unfold between that core of Clay, Steph, Draymond, that they're going to make that critical play to keep them in the game. So I think it's going to be a lot of coaching. I think Memphis might actually switch it up and go to maybe try and trap at the top of the key, especially when Poole or Steph has the ball, because Clay's not really a threat off the dribble. Force them to especially Clay, get the ball into his hands and force him to put it down on the ground and make a decision, because when he puts the ball on the ground, he's not as effective as he is when he's a spot-up shooter.
Here's the thing about it's interesting because I know we split hairs, right? You look at Desmond Bane shot 30% and Dillon Brooks.
He looked like he was hurt. He looked like he hurt.
Like he was hurt a little bit. Jaren Jackson, 56% from the field, he had 33 points. Ja Morant shot 45% from the field, he had 34 points. Your 2 best guys combined for 67 points, and it wasn't enough in a game where Steph Curry shot 8 of 20. Andrew Wiggins shot.
And they aren't going to shoot that bad ever again.
Shot 6 of 19. You're not getting a 40% Steph for this series from the field. You're not,
or even a 30% Clay.
You're not going to see a 32% Clay. You're probably going to see 43% Andrew Wiggins. but Clay,
I think they might have to do hack of Wiggins because Wiggins cannot make free throws.
I don't know because Wiggins, Wiggins was 4 of 7 from the line in this game,
Dude,
but
he has been
maybe,
so bad in this
maybe
postseason from
he
the
has
free
been
throw
up
line.
and down with his free throws. Like Clay was only 3 of 10 from the line. I mean, from 3-point line, from 3-point range, right? Like you're not getting a 32% Klay Thompson in this series. You're not getting a 40% from the field Steph Curry in this series. Like there has to be, as crazy as it sounds, you're not gonna stop Steph
No.
and Clay and Jordan Poole.
You
And
have to limit everybody else.
you have to force this to be a Steph and Clay thing. Like you really just have to make this a Steph and Clay versus Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, John Morant. Like that's what it has to be. Jordan Poole, we can't see 30-point games from Jordan Poole in this series like we saw in the first round. You can't see Andrew Wiggins go off for 24, 25 points sporadically. You can't see it. You can't see Gary Payton maybe pull a 25-point game out of his rear end. You can't see that because that's not winning basketball. John Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies had a shot to win this game. And if they won this game, it would have been. Now, I will give them credit here. Because it's in series like this are always interesting, right? You look at Steph and the Warriors, right? They had some days off because they wrapped up their series in 5. You look at John Morant and the Grizzlies, they played game 6 on
Friday.
And
they had the one-day break and quick turnaround.
And they played their game like on Sunday. Like so the Grizzlies had a very, and maybe that's what attributes to the great shooting because they had that time. But if this is going to be the game 1 was probably the worst shooting night we're going to see from the Golden State Warriors. We're not going to see that again. That was them shaking the rust off. Steph and Clay are not going to be shooting that bad again. Jordan Poole, who he didn't shoot that bad from the field, but Jordan Poole was 12 of 20, which is 60%. He had half of his free throws, or he had half his 3-pointers. He had 31 points.
He had 8 rebounds, 9 assists. He basically had a triple-double.
You can't give up a triple-double to Jordan Poole in this series and expect to win games. So it's always interesting because I thought that maybe because they would be playing right again, that Steph and these guys would have the edge up, and clearly they didn't. Like the Warriors got off to a slow start and it took some time, but in those big moments, we talked about earlier with closing games, in those big moments, yeah, Clay hit those free throws, missed those free throws, but he hit the 3 right back at the other, like just about immediately to make up for it. So yeah, that is going to be the difference, is the ability to close games. You're not going to see Golden State blow multiple 20-point games in this, or leads in this series, let alone in the same game. Memphis, it's going to take A+ basketball. Like, and oddly enough, they played A+ basketball in game 1. John Morant gives you 34 and Jaren Jackson give you 33. That's the best game that those two have had as a duo through 7 games now in their postseason run. So that's their best. That was I think, in my personal opinion, that was Memphis's best game from their best duo, and it still wasn't enough. Which means Dylan Brooks is going to have to step up. Which means Desmond Bane's going to have to step up. Which means we're going to have to get some of these other guys like Tillman and all those guys stepping up as well. That's
their
going to be
their core four's got to average. Have to easily put, all 4 of them have to put up 17 points tonight. I think all 4 of them. Jackson, Morant, one of them has to go off, but you need to see a minimum of 15 to 17 points from all 4 of their core guys. Yeah, I think for them to have a chance. Yeah. And honestly, if I had to pick, I think Memphis wins tonight, right?
You might have to stretch it and say 20, if we're being honest. Because like if you
think 4 of them have to get 20,
I would say at least 3 of them. And that's just like
I agree with that. Especially if one of them doesn't go for like 40 or something.
Yeah, like if you're just being mathematical, like if you want to be all
I'm averaging.
So. Yeah, I know. But if you just so if you let's say we get 25 from Ja, so we get 20 from JJ Triple J, that's 45. Let's say we get 17 from Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks combined, right? You're sitting at 70 some odd points, which is decent. But the Warriors, if I'm not mistaken, average almost 100 points a game. Who's going to fill in the extra 20 some odd points? Like, I think it's going to take. You're right. Barring someone going off like a Ja or a triple, like barring one of the or Desmond Bane, because we saw Desmond Bane have a phenomenal game this in the first round. He put up like 32 points, something like that. Mm-hmm. Hit 6 threes. That was his best game, I think, of his career. Like, barring that, it's going to take at least 20 from all of them, unless you're getting Ja just clicking and he goes off for 30 some odd points again, and then maybe Dribble J goes for 25. It's going to be interesting because here's the thing: Steph and Clay are going to give you at least 20 points, and Steph might give you 25, and Clay will probably give you 22. That's a lot. With Draymond Green back, well, he doesn't really score that much, but he could still give you 10, and that 10 means a lot.
I'll give you almost a triple-double. You can book it.
Absolutely. Jordan Poole, he doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon, and he's going to be the X factor in this series because if he can play in this series the way he played against Denver, like Denver's not a good defensive team, and Memphis isn't that great, but Memphis is better defensively than Denver. And I said coming into the series that if Memphis can shut down Jordan Poole or cool him down, that's going to mean a lot because what we've seen is the Warriors have kind of ridden the hot hand of Jordan Poole so far through this series. Not that Steph and Clay and these other guys haven't had big games and hit big shots because they have, but this postseason run so far has been based on Jordan Poole because we haven't really seen Jordan Poole have a bad game so far through 5 games against Denver and now this one game here with he hasn't had a bad game. And until Jordan Poole has a bad game, it's hard to really say that the Grizzlies can get past the Warriors. They're going to have to force Jordan Poole to have a bad game. That is 100% going to have to be.
And the only bad game he had was Game 4 against Denver, and that was the only game Denver won, right? So, and they barely won. It wasn't like they
barely won that game. And Nikola Jokic also had the best game of the series that he posted. So, it took Jordan Poole to have a bad game and also their best. So, that's what's going to take. You're going to have to slow down these extra.
I think Steven Adams has to play in this series. I really do.
He can't not play in this series.
Well, he didn't play in Game 1.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
They got to play him.
You're going to have to find
somebody to. They need that interior presence.
And you need an interior presence. I watched Gary Payton take a life in Game 1.
Oh my gosh, he killed Desmond Bain. Part of Desmond Bain. I think that's why he got hurt. I think something happened to his leg. On that dunk.
Forget a poster. Gary Payton put Desmond Bain on a billboard in Game 1 with that dunk. Yikes. I don't know what's going on, but Steve Adams does play because he's a presence on the interior. He's going to get you.
I think Tillman's
like I said earlier, 12 and 12, maybe even 15 and 15. Like Steve Adams can give you that. You need that down low, that presence.
Especially Looney was an X factor in Game 1.
Especially when Draymond Green is off the floor. You need a guy like that.
And you put him up against Looney when Looney comes in. You have to.
Adams would
because Looney's not a scorer.
100%. Very quickly before we go, please let everybody know again where to find you. What's up next for you?
Absolutely. So you can catch me on Instagram or on TikTok, thefinal.whistle. You can catch me on Facebook, Final Whistle Sports Pod, as well as we are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we've got it. So again, we got some stuff hopefully in the works right now. Going to have a big NBA recap of the first round. I need to get on that because it's already Game 2 of the second round. So we'll be talking about that. Also, I kind of posted it on my story last night that with playoff hockey debuting last night, we'll talk a little bit. We'll integrate playoff hockey because I think it's the greatest thing to watch. There's just a different level of competition when it's playoff hockey.
I watched I think it was the Maple Leafs and the Lightning just go at it the other day. Oh.
Yo, dude, it's different, bro. I can't watch it in the regular season because they take nights off and you can see it. But when postseason, they are mauling each other.
It's fantastic. So, I do want to say we lied to you. This show's coming out before the game. I don't know why
I lied to the people. It'll be out before Game 2. Who you got tonight? I got.
I don't know why I sat here and lied to you and told you it wouldn't. It's going to be out before Game 2. So you have Memphis winning.
I got Memphis by a couple. I don't think I got Memphis by 4.
I'm going to say because I have faith that Ja and Triple J can get a win at home because they did it. They can't get a win at home. I don't.
It's over. It's over if they lose.
I'm going to go with him. I'm going to say Memphis gets the win tonight by 5-7 points. Who knows? But if they don't win tonight, this series is over because I don't think they're going to steal a game on the road because
you think they're going to get swept?
Yeah, dude. I don't see Memphis getting a win in Golden State. I know you're a fan, and so you have a different perspective, but Steph Curry is the most, in my personal opinion, and I'm not saying he's the best player in the NBA because despite what he did in the first round, I still think that's Kevin Durant, but we can have that conversation another day. There's nobody that is more electric in the National Basketball Association today than Steph Curry. And there's no one that lights up their home crowd more than Steph Curry. Like, Giannis can do it in Milwaukee and LeBron can do it in LA, but nobody lights up that crowd, their home crowd, more than Steph Curry. You got Clay back. This is playoff. This is Golden State's been out of the playoffs for 2 years. This is a different home feel. I know it's if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty like this is their first real run in the postseason in the Chase Center, right? Now that they're no longer in Oracle, but we're still talking about Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. We're still talking about a team that won 3 of 5 championships before injuries derailed.
Well, I mean, it should have been 4 and 5 if
all right, well, we're not going to get you started. We're not going to get you started. 4 and 5.
If Klay doesn't get hurt in Game 6,
we're not going to get you started with that because I know that's going to send you to a slower depression. Seriously, though, you guys, I'm sorry I lied to you. This show is going to be out today before Game 2. But thank you guys for watching and listening anyway. We have one more series to talk about, and that show will be tomorrow. Jeremy with Stuff About Sports come back on the show to talk about his Sixers getting past the Toronto Raptors. We'll talk about Doc Rivers and his playoff rant. We'll talk about Joel Embiid and his broken face. We'll talk about a lot of things going on with 76ers, obviously, in the Raptors, just like we did with the other previous 7 episodes. If you haven't already, check out any of these 7 first-round series recap episodes. Greatly appreciate it. Also, the draft is over, which means next week starts the beginning of the 32-episode NFL offseason series. I'm breaking my back for this one, but it's going to be good. We're going to have some great guests on. 32 fantastic episodes talking about the draft, free agency, looking ahead into the upcoming 2022-2023 season in the National Football League. So please follow on all the socials below, to Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at GTP Marcus. Head over to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Follow, subscribe, and make sure you turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes. Also, definitely make sure you subscribe on YouTube because we're trying to get to 100 subscribers before the end of the month. And one last thing before we go, June 2nd, I believe, this upcoming June, so the first Saturday in June, is the return of the College Girls Foundation's annual scholarship luncheon. They've taken 2 years off because of COVID. They're back in person. Fantastic organization, fantastic foundation. I'm a product of this foundation. The first class of college girl students is graduating from college this year, and this year's class of College Girl Foundation students, all 14 of them got accepted into college on some form of scholarship. So it's a fantastic organization. It's College Girl Foundation, girl with a U, not an I. Please make sure you follow on Instagram. Make sure you head over to the website, either purchase a ticket or donate. It's a fantastic thing. If you love me, you'll do it because I'm a product of this great organization. Produce this great, beautiful person you see here and more like it. So please head over to those websites and make sure you do that. But for Blaine Spencer of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast, this is Marcus of Go Talk with Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you guys enjoy the rest of the